Excuse me. Excuse me. Wow. Uh, welcome, welcome to Hit or Miss. I guess this is the miss.
Yeah.
So
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, swing and a miss. So this is our special edition of Hit or Miss.
Just because I'm special.
Yeah, well, there ain't anybody more special than this guy.
You're right about that.
I can tell you that right now.
Jerry's kid special.
But I had Jason, the Rogue Banshee on last week, and this week
that was a good stream.
This week we're gonna do about the same thing, but we're gonna do it with C&T Design and Arms, otherwise known as Coop. You might see me on his channel a lot because I love to just go and mess with him and send pictures of my wood to his wife. She likes it very much.
My wife loves your wood.
She does. And guys, if you had to have been there in order to know the joke, if you weren't, just ask me offline, and I'll tell you the background. I'm not gonna go over it with YouTube because we might get popped for that kind of thing.
Well, if we show your wood off, we will definitely get popped.
Yeah, that's a stream-ending event right there.
Yeah, it is. You can't show a receiver these days. You can't show your wood.
No, you can't.
Foss, what's up, my brother?
Yeah, so we got Foss out there. What's going on, Foss? So, all right. So, as I said, we're doing the Hit or Miss special edition with C&T Design and Arms, otherwise known as Coop, here on YouTube. So, I've got in the description below, I've got a link to his YouTube channel and to his Rumble channel. So, give him some love.
Yeah, and if you subscribe to my channel, you're going to hell with the rest of us. I just want to let you know.
Yeah, well,
gasoline pants on and everything.
Yeah. Anyways, we got Rollus Carvelis out there saying good evening from I-75 northbound. Wow, you're out there. You're out
Rollus,
there.
What's up, brother?
I'm only near I-95. I'm near 95. I'm not near 75, sadly. All right.
I-75 northbound. If you're I-75 northbound out of Atlanta, yeah, go with God.
All right, so let's get this started. Well, I know how you got started, Coop, but could you give us just like a brief description of yourself and what you do on your YouTube channel?
Getting to how I got started. So I got started because I'm just insanely annoyed with all the stupid gun laws and all the BS that we have to deal with. So I originally started my channel just to start calling that out. I did a series. I got to get back to doing it this year. I'm in January doing what I started out doing, which was paper cuts. So going over, it's like, again, the death of 1,000 cuts kind of play, going over proposed gun laws and kind of tracking where they go. And of course I do plasma cuts and stuff like that.
Right. You do plasma cuts. Plus, you're also a welder and you also instruct welding.
Yes. Which thank God we're getting to the end of this semester. We'll be done Thursday for this semester, which I get some time after that.
We're going to be talking a little bit about that. So, be prepared.
I'm never prepared.
I know. I know. I'm prepared, which is weird. It's weird being this prepared again.
Yeah, and I walk into a class prepared. It kind of scares me. Scares my students.
Because I've seen your shows. I've been in there.
My shows, man, I've got to start doing some more recorded stuff where I'm serious about things.
Right.
I started doing a whole lot of stuff with oral arguments on gun cases and on some other stuff lately. And they turn into hangouts. It's
actually that reminds me. I want to mention this to you because you watch this with me a lot. You remember the South Carolina open carry videos?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Oh, you know that fat black lady Democrat?
Oh God, what was the phrase?
Her name did you know?
Did you know? Yes. Oh God.
Yeah.
I'm
By
still
the way,
traumatized.
she owns her own law firm. I got called into jury duty a few weeks ago, and she was representing the defendant.
Oh my God, that poor guy. He
Yeah,
is so gonna get railroaded.
uh,
Um,
and well, she had what looked like an actual competent lawyer with her. But the fact is, I just thought I'd mention it because now that the case is over and whatnot, it doesn't matter. But the issue is, I got called into jury duty, and I swear to God, that lady looked at me with like the stink eye, like she saw the videos on YouTube, and she's like, "I know that guy. I don't like that guy."
oh man, it's still her getting up and the whole "Did you know?" Every single time she was about to say something
Have you
absolutely
heard that?
retarded about Carrie. Did you know they'll be shooting people in the street? Did you know?
Actually, I had half a mind to ask her before I left. By the way, I don't see blood in the streets, so I guess you were wrong.
I would ask her, did you know? I'd start out with did you know? Did you know we're not rolling around in a river of blood right now? Um,
Yeah.
just
I mean,
just to bring
if
it
I
up.
wasn't there for jury duty, I would have done that. But
Oh,
again, again, you know,
dude, covering that was like I didn't have my channel rolling when Alabama was arguing their stuff. I don't think I was doing lives then. But the arguments were the same. Blood in the street, judges are gonna get shot, and nuns are gonna be sleeping with puppies or something, the whole 9 yards for those arguments. And it was just mind blowing.
I know, I know.
Um,
All right,
and
so
now
let's get back to what we were doing. I was supposed to be interviewing you, so let me try and figure this out.
this is an interview with me. Did you
Yes,
know?
yeah. So okay, which one I want to? So you do a lot of live streams. So how did you
Yes.
get started doing live streams?
Dude, it's the same thing kind of when I started my channel. And I've told the story before. I I'd been thinking about starting a channel for a while and about all the gun law stuff. And I started following John Crump.
Yeah,
And John
Grumpy.
Crump just did a pop-up stream one night. It was hell, it was Christmas night in like 2020. Um, and he just did an open stream, and I'd never been on a live stream before. But I got on there and I was about tanked. It was late Christmas night, kids were in bed, I was about hammered. Dark came on, Dark had COVID. Um,
Yeah, I remember that. That was great.
it was like, fuck it, man. I'll
He's
start
like,
my
my head
channel after
hurts
that.
so much. Oh,
Oh, dude, Dark was looking rough, man. I felt so sorry for him.
I hate to say it, but he doesn't look any more rough than he does today.
Hey, look, he's got a better gay haircut.
Oh, right. We can't forget that. We can't forget that.
Oh man, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And I said after that night, I was like, screw it, I'll start my channel. I'll get on and I'll talk about gun laws. And then it, of course, like I said, expanded into like doing oral arguments or watching like your stuff in the Carolinas about the carry. And
Yeah. Well,
it's
it,
just
it,
kind of expanded.
that was specifically just I had covered it before, and it got trounced hard the last time, and I was so unhappy about it. And then the time before that, where the guy said, "Oh, we're killing it because you threatened us,"
Oh,
because somebody had threatened him, and then the time before that, it was Such's cousin that kept tabling it, said we didn't need it.
yeah. Well,
By the
we
way,
got
the guy who kept tabling it all the damn time was Senator Larry Martin, Such's cousin.
well, we got a douchebag in Alabama. I haven't seen. I looked the other day.
He's not. He didn't run for reelection. He didn't get reelected the last couple times. I guess he's done. Period.
Yeah. Well, we had permitless carry in Alabama for a couple years now, and the sheriffs are crying about losing all the money from the permits. So there's a so-called Republican who's supposed to put in a bill this year to try to kill permitless carry.
Mm.
Um,
Well, SLED, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. It's a state level division, but they're the ones that handle the permitting, and they seem to be doing all right even without the money from the permits. So it's just like, if you can run without it, why do you need it?
Oh, our sheriffs, that was their biggest argument against permitless carry.
And that's probably your sheriffs that are issuing it instead of like a state level.
Yeah, it's our sheriffs that did it.
Yeah.
So like when we went,
I think Georgia does that too, right?
I think so. I think the sheriffs in Georgia govern their stuff.
Yeah.
Which we had sheriffs. Their biggest issue against permitless carry was they're going to lose money. So it wasn't about public safety. It wasn't about, oh, we're going to stop these criminals from doing this stuff. It was all about, oh no, we're going to lose money.
Right.
Which I don't care whether they lose money.
Neither do I.
It's I carry. It's my right to carry.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama's Constitution says the government doesn't have the right to regulate it. So why in the hell are we even dealing with it? Besides the fact that the sheriffs need the money.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
So we're gonna run into some of the other stuff. So as we mentioned before, you're a welder and a welding instructor.
Yeah.
So let's get in some of those questions. What made you want to become a welder?
Dude, I actually kind of fell into it. I had done it some in some other jobs, being a plumber. There was welding that I did and repairing equipment and stuff. And I was actually going to try to get out of the construction trades altogether, and go into the medical field. So I was at Columbus Tech in Columbus, Georgia, and did all my prereqs for freaking to go into ultrasound. Basically, I wanted to go into cardiac ultrasound. And I've talked about it before. I had a prior felony, and I did all my prereqs for everything. Was ready to go into the program, filled out my packet, and got a call from everybody that was over the sonography program, and they were like, "Look, dude, we love your grades. We love everything about you. But dude, you got a felony. We can't place you." So I was like, shit, okay. Let me see whether I can get this cleaned up. And decided, hell, I've got some time. I'll kill a year, go over to the welding department and play around. And by the time I got through the welding program, the instructor offered me a job. He was like, look, you've been teaching a lot of the time you've been here anyway. Why don't you come to work? And I got a state pardon, and I think I got it. Yeah, I got it right in 2010. So that kind of cleared up charges and stuff.
What you need to do is you need to ask Biden or Trump if they'll give you a presidential pardon.
Well, I actually got all my stuff cleaned up. And that's how I got all my firearms rights back in like 2017. But that's how I ended up as a welding instructor. I got out of the program. They were like, look, dude, why don't you come work for us? And I've had back issues for a long time, and I was like, screw it. Yeah, I'll go to work for you. And just fell right into teaching as soon as I finished their program. And that's what I've been doing since 2010, since June of 2010.
Right.
So it was kind of, it's kind of one of those things that it was an opportunity that I just fell into. Because other issues, but when I got the felonies and everything cleaned up in 2017, got all my rights back, got firearms rights back and all that shit.
Right.
Now I'm looking to, hopefully, depending on how things go, I'll try it this year to do my FFL to actually start working on, actually building guns is where I want to hang out. I did the SDI stuff for gunsmithing, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I did Penn Foster, but it was about the same.
It's you get out of it what you put into it. I wish there had been more like projects to work on.
I wish I
Um,
had projects, but instead I got tools. I got, books on disassembly and reassembly. The the big thick NRA ones.
yeah,
And I got, the knowledge of how to refinish stocks, how to, glass bed, all that stuff. Also how to reproduce stocks.
dude, that's
So,
woodworking and finishing is probably some of my weakest, as far
well,
as a skill level. Because
well,
it's like checkering.
I
I
know
can I can checker, but I'm not that great at it.
I'm not great at checkering, but if it's stripping and it's staining, I can do that. That's
Well,
easy.
we love it when you strip.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
know you do. I know you do. You've told me.
no, I could do
Yeah.
stripping the stock down and actually refinishing it. I do really good at parkerizing, bluing.
Yeah.
I gotta work on my metal finish before I blue because I'm still fighting to get that deep blue,
Right.
slick finish that you'd see on some real high end guns.
Mhm.
Because I do actual salt bluing, actual parkerizing, and for me, like my parkerizing stuff, which I'll do on the set me that I got to finish building, um, like AKs. That's one thing I love working on.
Yeah, I
And
like AKs. I like working on them. The problem is I hate riveting.
dude, riveting an AK, actually an AK build from the start, from like 80% receiver, which I got guns laying over here that are 80% receivers. Hell, pretty much all my AKs are 80% right
Don't
now.
don't tell the
Um,
ATF that because then we'll have to ask them or if those are level 4 plates.
oh, they can kiss my ass. Because I'm gonna be shooting in the fucking forehead. This plate ain't gonna matter. I'm shooting neck up.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
but it's riveting an AK, building an AK from the ground up, like tearing it down, riveting everything in. That's nowhere near as complicated as that set me build. That set me
well,
build is way more in depth.
no, it is and it isn't, okay? It's the trade-off that you're trading off the riveting the trunnion in with pins and rivets than with you know TIG welding it in instead.
Well, my worst
Well,
or the hardest problem with this
and
set me.
remember the SETME receiver you fold it, and with AK's receivers, if you're using the thin style AK receivers, you have to fold those too.
Well, I've done my first AK that I ever built was from a flat. So
Right.
I actually built. I didn't want to. I didn't know whether it was something I could actually do. So I bought a really cheap kit, from Royal Tiger, which was actually a IO kit. So inner ordnance.
Mhm.
I mean, as cheap as you can get.
Wait, whoa, 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 whoa! I don't. You're not telling me that you built an IO ink gun.
I built an IO gun. That
You
was my
understand
first
that
AK build.
those AKs are the AKs you don't shoot because they'll blow up in your face, right?
Hey, look, I built that
They're,
gun
they are
right.
they are the worst AKs on the
Yes,
market.
they're cast trunnions, whole 9 yards. But that was the gun to learn on because if I picked it up, I was only out, I think, 100 and something bucks for the kit. Plus receiver and everything else.
Yeah.
And I built it from a flat. It's actually where I learned how to use a vertical mill because I built the jig to bend the flat.
Ooh.
I actually built the jigs to um, set the trunnions.
Right.
So, you've actually got a jig where you push the receiver on the trunnion, you locate the hole, you move it, you drill the hole in the receiver. I built those jigs. I built all my stuff. I built the
Right.
barrel press for it. which out of all thread and actually built the blocks to go around the trunnion to hold the
No, you
trunnion.
didn't use all thread.
Oh yeah, you use it for the barrel press. Yeah, so the barrel press, all I did was I looked up Toth Tools, and looked up their pictures of their equipment, and then I just basically, not knowing a whole lot of shit, just basically built off their pattern. Now mine is built a lot heavier because I had the heavier all thread and all kinds of shit.
Right.
But I learned a lot from building that gun. Now that gun is completely rebuilt now. It's built with a not I can't remember whether that one's a Polish trunnion. And no, maybe it is a Romanian trunnion or Romanian bolt. The only thing left in that gun that is IO is the barrel, basically in the
I'm not
front
sure I'd
sight
trust
block.
that.
Hey, the barrel was good. I mean, it's a hollow tube with rifling.
It could be canted. It could be.
Oh no,
all the angle wrong.
Everything else was redone on the gun, but
all right,
that gun is hell. It's laying around here somewhere, or it might be in the safe.
Yeah, well, we can't show it on air. Remember?
Yeah, we can't show it on air, but anyway, it's completely rebuilt now.
So.
But I learned a lot from building that gun about riveting, because I even bought bolt cutters and made my own riveting jaws.
Oh, I've got those. I've got those. The bolt cutter riveters. I've got those.
Yeah, because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't sure whether I would be able to build. That was the first gun I ever built.
Yeah.
I hadn't built anything else before.
All right. Let's get back into some of these questions, because I got a whole bunch of them. So about the welding though.
Yeah.
So here's a question. What's the most difficult part of being a welder?
I wouldn't say the most difficult part of being a welder. Well, I'll say this. The most difficult part about being a welder is attention to detail. And believe it or not, a lot of women that I've had in classes, women typically have a lot better eye for detail than guys do. So as far as like a skill level for welders, they tend to be a lot better. Because you have to teach guys how to pay attention to detail.
It's true.
We like to look at fire. We like to see molten metal, but we don't have the eye for detail.
For some guys, it's like one and done.
Oh yeah. And we don't have the dexterity. A lot of the dexterity that women have, we don't have.
No.
So but probably, yeah, the hardest thing about being a welder is learning that attention to detail. Because there's a lot of stuff you have to watch while you're running a weld. It's just you've got to be able to pay attention to those fine details.
Right.
Which I'm getting to where I'm gonna need glasses now. My right eye is actually getting weak. So like doing something like TIG welding, where real fine movements and watching the edges of a puddle, my left eye wants to take over, and I just go cross-eyed. And I've got to stop what I'm doing to reset and then get back running. So it's wild. It really is. But yeah, attention to detail is probably the hardest thing.
All right. How about this one? What was the hardest project you ever had welding?
Yeah, I don't know the hardest project. There were things that were hard to learn, like say TIG welding pipe or even stick welding pipe in a 5G position. So the pipe itself is horizontal and you're starting from the bottom and working your way up. That was probably the hardest thing. People talk about 6G pipe, because 6G pipe will qualify you for what you call all position. and it's a pipe on a fixed 45, whether it's down or up. Um, to me, that's not as hard as running a 5.
Mm.
Um, 5s are just they're pain in the ass. Getting off the bottom of the pipe to about the first quarter, getting off the bottom is always, to me, that's the hardest part. After you get off the bottom, about a quarter off the bottom of the pipe, whether it's a 2-inch pipe, 4-inch pipe, whatever, it's not that bad. But definitely getting off the bottom of the pipe and getting that first quarter, that to me, that's the hardest part.
All right. All right. Let's let's mix this up a little. What is your favorite type of welder? You know, is it a TIG welder? Is it a stick? Is it, you know, I'm gonna throw this out where you've seen some of those laser welders, right?
Yeah, I've seen laser. I've never done it, but the biggest problem with a laser welder, and it looks really cool. The biggest problem with it is your joint fit ups have to be perfect
Yeah.
every single time. So with stick welding, TIG welding, MIG welding, flux core, you can have some variations in a joint and you can still work with it. But with laser welding, it to me, and I don't know a whole lot about it. I've never done it. It seems like your joint fit ups have to be dead nut perfect every single time. And you typically are not going to get that.
So would it be a stick welder? Would it be a MIG or a TIG?
My favorite welding to do is probably TIG. Just because it's one of those things where even whether it's pipe or whether it's plate, whether it's, you know, welding on a gun or something like that, I can throw on some music, and when now my right hand's messed up, so I'm doing everything left-handed. I can throw on some music and you just get with it.
Okay.
And it's one of those processes. It's very clean. As long as your base materials are clean and your joint fit ups half-ass right, the process just flows.
Right.
Um,
Damien out there says, Tactical Muffin Top is angry that I'm not, you know, calling him out. Well, I'm not calling everybody out, Tactical Muffin Top. Just the few that have something that can, you know, that help with the conversation and help it move along. Damien Christian said welding aluminum isn't easy, he says.
no,
It's not easy, but you know, there's several ways to get at it. Like, I know this for a fact that you can TIG weld aluminum.
oh yeah.
And that would be the easiest way to do it.
Well, the
if you want to weld aluminum, you know, otherwise you'd braze it.
The absolute easiest way to weld aluminum is to wire weld it with MIG. The biggest thing about aluminum is it has to be clean.
Yeah.
You can't it can't have an oxide layer on it. Like a lot of your grinding rocks are aluminum oxide, because aluminum oxide, which is the oxide that forms on aluminum, is harder than diamond.
Yeah.
So if you've got a little bit of a layer of oxide on aluminum, what'll happen is, and I've seen students do it, you will melt the aluminum underneath the oxide, but the oxide won't melt, so you won't get a puddle. All that happens is the metal underneath just melts and falls out.
Right.
I actually had one student one time, a young girl student I had. She was a high school student, came over as a dual enroll.
Right.
They were just starting with aluminum, and she got a hold of a piece, and I was dealing with other students and wasn't paying too much attention to her. Matter of fact, I didn't realize she'd grabbed any aluminum, but the aluminum she grabbed had an oxide layer on it, and she was trying to TIG weld it, and all it did was melt and then fall off or fall out. And another student was making fun of her.
Was she not doing it high enough, or was she doing it too low?
No, it was that oxide layer. She was doing like a lap joint. where one piece is sitting on top of another piece. Well, with that oxide layer, like I said, that oxide layer won't melt, and the material underneath will melt, so you'll never get a puddle, and it just falls out. It just melts and drops.
So what's the fix for that?
You just got to clean that oxide layer out of there. That's one of the hardest things about aluminum, is just keeping it clean. I had a guy bring in a pontoon boat one time that had sat in salt water, and the salt water, of course, it'll just eat aluminum, and it still had barnacles on it. And he basically wanted to make like a barge to float around in his pond. So we cut the ends that were all corroded off of the pontoons, and I just cut discs of aluminum to weld onto the ends of the pontoons. And it drove me crazy because it was so hard to get that base material clean to where it would actually develop a puddle, and then you could flow it in and get around it. Wasn't bad anywhere where the salt water wasn't really, where it wasn't sitting in the salt water. Where it sat in the salt water, corroded aluminum will drive you absolutely insane. It is horrible to deal with.
Yeah. All right. Let me get my questions back over here. All right. So there's that.
Mike McClune the Goon. What's up, my brother?
Mike McClune's out there. Here's one. What do you wish you had known before becoming a welder?
I think probably a little bit more than metallurgy. I don't know. I don't know whether it would have been better to learn that before learning how to weld, or learning like I did after. Because there were a lot of skills as far as, reading tapes and being used to working construction and all that stuff I already had. So I wasn't coming in, and I'd already done some general repair welding before I actually went through classes. So I don't know. That's another one of those hard ones, because like teaching students, I wish some of these students came in and had more of a background with just being able to work with your hands, a mechanical background. I've got a couple students that at the end of this semester, they're going to change programs and go somewhere else. They made it through this semester, which was kind of an entry level class, but they figured out welding just wasn't for them. But again, they don't have,
well, that you never know. They might be able to use those skills, in hobbies later on down the road.
Yeah, and a couple of them, one of them might, one of them probably won't. But they don't have that. They've never had to work on things with their hands.
That's the issue.
They've never built anything. They've never worked on an engine. The mechanical skills aren't there. So I wish, and it's, some people would say it's more this latest generation, but it's really not.
Thanks.
We run into a lot of people that have never, and older and younger, have never changed a tire, have never, turned wrenches on anything, never built anything.
I've done all that stuff. I still do all that stuff. Like every year I have to either clean the carb or replace the carb on my generators.
Yeah. It's
and it's because I always buy the cheap gas instead of just using, ethanol free gas.
Oh God, man. Ethanol is so horrible.
But the problem is it's harder to keep ethanol free gas stable.
Yeah. There's a couple
long periods.
There's a couple good gas treatments. Sta-Bil is one, and there's a couple others that are good. that will keep non-ethanol gas stable. What most people don't realize about ethanol gas will leach moisture out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's an alcohol. It will actually suck moisture out of the atmosphere. So that's part of what screws up carburetors. In like the old
Well,
boat
no,
motor
no,
that I had.
because when ethanol gas, well, when it dries up, it literally creates a sticky gum
Yes.
substance. So that's what they mean when they say it'll gum up your carb,
Yeah, it will.
because
Um,
it'll become a sticky substance when it gets drier.
the 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 alcohol nature of it is what eats up things like gaskets. And if you've got needle valves in a carburetor that are rubber tipped, if they're not a certain type of rubber, it will eat that rubber up. Like
I know,
the
Mike.
old
I know. I've
Mercury that
tried
I
that, but it's the problem is, Mike, is it's more expensive, and I'm not gonna pay, $3 or $4 a gallon.
oh dude, it's gonna be
Not for marine fuel.
anywhere from down here. It's gonna be anywhere from 75 cents to a dollar more expensive than premium fuel. Um,
Yeah,
and the old boat motor that I had, it was always the needle valves in the carburetors.
yeah,
Which your needle valves where your float operates, it actually pushes the needle valve up and it will seal off part of your carburetor. It always ate those up. So when your bowl in the bottom of the carburetor filled and your float came up, it wouldn't seal off where the needle valve was at, and it would just sling fuel out of the carburetor. Um, so I got real good at turning wrenches on a classic 50 Mercury motor
yeah.
because I
Uh,
was constantly pulling carburetors.
my friend Scott out there said, he mentioned something about welding. He says, uh, what is it? Let me go up. He says, work with some guys that could weld titanium. If you think aluminum is bad, titanium is worse.
Yeah, titanium, and I've never welded. I know some guys that have. So, like titanium that they were doing, you've got to have. Typically, it was TIG welding they were doing it with, and not only do you have to have your gas coming from your TIG torch on it, it was typically done on a block to where you had shielding gas that was coming from underneath the weld too. And you
Right.
can do that with stainless. It's a back purging is what it's called. Um, and from what they said, titanium wasn't too much different than welding. Um, your higher grade stainlesses, it may warp a little bit more. It was more heat sensitive,
Right.
but it's again, it's something that I haven't done, so I couldn't speak to it directly.
Okay. Uh,
Um,
going back to welding, I don't think I've asked this one yet, but what's the best advice you could give to someone wanting to become a welder?
be patient. You're gonna have to work at it. Um, like one of the or actually both of the students that I've got that are gonna change programs after this semester, they would be fine if they would be patient and then they would spend time under the hood. In other words, in there actually welding. But there are two students who figured out this was hard and they don't want to spend the time underneath that hood to actually learn the skill. And that's what it takes. And there are some students that on some things will learn very quickly. And some students like me, I didn't learn stuff quickly. But I spent 3 times as long in the shop as other students did. So where they learned some stuff really easy, and some of the stuff I learned was, took me a while. It was harder for me. Then they hit something that was hard and they wanted to give up.
Mhm.
And then there were other things where I learned quick as hell because I spent that time in there working. And that's what I see with most students who either fail out of classes or end up not coming back or end up just, leaving, is they just don't want to work at it.
Right.
And that's what it takes is time under the hood,
Patience,
when
lots of
yeah,
patience.
a lot of patience with yourself. And when you get frustrated,
'Cause
and I've told a lot of students, when I got frustrated learning something, I went back and oxy-fuel cut because I was good with an oxy torch from the start. So when I got hung up on something, I would bounce back to oxy-fuel because it kind of centered me because I was really good at it. And then once I cut for a little while, I'd go back and work on the thing that was giving me trouble.
it
It was
yeah, and that goes back to my thing is, while I know it's not technically a welder, but you could weld with it, but I'm a big fan of the acetylene torch.
oh, dude, man, I love an oxy torch.
You can definitely weld with it if you know what you're doing.
Oh,
And it's not just there for cutting. You can weld with it too.
no, with an acetylene rig, you can cut with it, you can braze with it, you can solder with it, you can heat with it. I
You
mean,
can weld too.
yeah, you can weld with it. I mean, there's if I and I've told plenty of people if I was just out on the farm and didn't have a welder generator and I needed to be able to weld, cut, and braze and all that, I'd have an oxy rig in my truck, and that's all I'd
Right.
have because I can do everything I need with that oxy rig.
Yeah.
Now I can't do like aluminum with it or something like
No.
that, but
Well,
anything with mild steels,
you
um,
could if you were just going to go and braze aluminum
you could do some brazing with aluminum with it.
with some of that
Um,
Alumarod. You've seen
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah, I've never used it, but I have seen it.
I've used it a little bit. It's a tough learning curve.
Yeah, which I mean that kind of falls back into a lot of stuff with welding. A lot of stuff with welding is all a tough learning curve.
See,
Um,
all the welding I do is just, the minor stuff here at home because, I've got a wire MIG, the flux what is it? The flux core.
yeah,
That's what I've got because I don't I don't need the gas right now, and it doesn't make any sense for me to go and rent a tank and pay for the gas if I'm only gonna use it, like, once a year.
yeah. Well, there's in most people or a lot of people don't realize there are a couple different types of flux cores. So there is a gas shielded flux core, and then there's a self shielded flux core.
Yeah.
Gas shielded flux core is, I mean, that stuff's easy and it
Yeah.
welds beautiful. Self shielded flux core
Yeah.
is some popping, sputtering, spattering. It just, if you're not dead on with it, it will
Well
freaking tell you.
well, I'm gonna say this, and you're gonna laugh when I say this, but it's what my grandfather says, and what, one of the YouTube channels says all the time too, Diesel Creek. Uh, a grinder and paint will make you the
Makes
welder
me the
you ain't.
welder I ain't. Yeah, I've heard
Yep.
it before.
Yeah, my grandfather said that, and he was a certified welder. He welded lots of things, like, he even welded airplane wings during the war.
To some extent,
So,
that's not wrong because an ugly weld
still
is
hold on.
not necessarily a weld that will fail. Because I've seen beautiful welds
Yeah, me
that
too.
when you tested them would fall apart. Um, they would either fall apart on a bend test or when you did like a tensile test where you shape a piece of material and you pull it apart,
Right.
um,
You're trying to see
they
the
would
strength of the weld.
absolutely fail. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're checking the tensile strength of it. So, like mild steel, um, depending on the steel, A36 mild steel, you're looking at something that's going to pull on a tensile test.
Yeah.
I've seen it pull as high as like 92,000 pounds. Um,
Personally, I really need to get a stick welder myself because guess what I learned to weld? I
hmm,
learned with a stick welder in high school because I took welding in high school and they taught us how to go and weld, how to use the acetylene torch, how to go and use a MIG and a TIG.
Yeah.
And, I got to learn all of that. And I haven't used those skills in 20 years. And just like in the last couple years, I bought, the Flux Core MIG because they were on sale like Tractor Supply for like $99, you know, and I just started using that. Are my welds pretty? No, my welds are shitty. I'll give you that. But, as long as they hold, that's all I care about.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that's the wire that you're using.
Yeah.
Um, I promise you, if you
And
went to,
maybe I'm going a bit too fast too.
well, yeah, it's kind of dependent, but I guarantee you, if you welded the same exact way that you're welding now with a gas shielded flux core, it
It looked
would
nicer.
look 10 times better.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I mean, that wire runs so much better than your self shielded flux cores. But your self shielded flux cores, again, are a lot more portable than a gas shielded flux core.
You
So
don't have the tank to deal with.
yeah, if you look at a lot of heavier construction, it's all going to be self shielded flux core.
Mm,
Um, which when you look at it, it really runs like a stick electrode. It's just inside out.
right.
So instead of having a flux shielding on the outside of the wire is a straw and has a flux shielding on the inside.
Yeah.
Um, but it is some spitting, sputtering, smoking.
I mean, this is gonna sound bad, but I don't have a welder generator. I'm just
Oh,
whenever I weld, I just use one of the generators I have lying around.
dude, I don't have a welder generator right now. I've got a
Because I've got portable generators, and I figure, you know what? All the welder generator will do is just do the same damn thing those things are doing.
what was Sean saying? 742 or Pro Light?
Oh, I think he's talking to Mike McClone.
Sick
So,
stick
they're
weld mainly on pipeline. Yeah.
yeah.
Stick welding is one of those things where I've heard some people say, "Oh, it's going away because other processes." No, stick welding's
It
never
may be
going away.
people say it's going away, but I'm gonna tell you right now, they still sell the welders all day long.
Stick welding's never going away.
All day
It
long.
it's way too portable compared to other processes. So, like these days with inverter welders, I can get a welder no bigger than a shoebox
Yeah.
that will weld 150 amps. And yeah, I promise you, if you can weld a 6010 and a 7018, there ain't nothing you can't weld that's a regular mild steel. You
Right.
can't weld aluminums with it or something like that. But the majority of stuff that you look at is going to be built out of mild steels.
Right.
So they say you can fix the world with those two electrodes, and they're right. Um, Matter of fact, a buddy of mine he works down at the paper mill down here. And I've just on the side with the little welder I got, I taught him when he went to maintenance and taught him that, look, man, with the repair welds that you're doing, if you clean something up, you run a 6010 root in it, which is 6010 is a high penetration, low deposition electrode. A lot of people call them trash rods, but they're meant for certain purposes. I said, if you root it with a 6010 and then actually clean it up and run it over with a 7018 for your final passes, I said, it's not going to break. And he laughed. He had been down there, I don't know, almost a year. And we were shooting the shit one day. And he was like, man, people give him hell about running 6010s. But he said, my shit don't break. He said, they try to weld it just with a 7018. And I got to go in and fix their stuff all the time now. And it's like I told you, brother. I said, especially on the repair work that you're doing, your root welds with a 6010 and then coming back over with a 7018,
Mhm.
they're going to be a hell of a lot stronger than someone just trying to run a 7018 on
Right.
it. And it's just 7018s being low hydrogen electrodes and getting into some of the deeper into welding. They're really susceptible to contamination from the atmosphere. So if you're running some sort of a joint where, say, the back side of the joint's going to be exposed to the atmosphere, If you just try to run a 7018 in it, your root of that weld is not going to be as strong. Now, a 6010 being a low deposition electrode, but at what we call a fast freeze. So, meaning it cools very quick when you start to step away from the puddle. It's less susceptible to contamination from the atmosphere. So it, even though it's a 60,000-pound electrode versus a 70,000-pound electrode, if you run your root with a 6010 and then come back over with an 18, you end up with a stronger joint. You don't end up with a contamination that you would if you just try to run it with a 7018. And that's my buddy proves it all the time. And it's hysterical. Listening to some of the things he runs into at the mill. He had an issue one time with 6010s. He was talking about how they were acting as far as a weld. And it was basically cooking the coating on the electrode. And I asked him, I said, are you baking your 6010s? Now 7018s, low hydrogen electrodes, you have to keep those in what you call a rod oven. And they have to be basically 0% moisture. That's the reason you put them in a rod oven.
Right.
Well, 6010s, they actually need a little bit of moisture. So if you bake them, you ruin the coating on the electrode.
So they won't run properly.
Yeah, they won't run properly. I told my buddy, I said, look, man, don't grab 6010s out of a rod heater. I said, just open up a new can of them and grab them straight out of the can, and they'll run 10 times better. And it was like the next week I talked to him. He said, man, you were right. He said, I grab them out of the can now. He said, those other people can deal with that other horse shit. He said, I grab them out of the can. They run 10 times better. Because it's the nature of the electrode.
Right. And for those of you listening, Coop is a welder. He also is a gunsmith. You know, he's gotten his gunsmithing course through SDI, but it was SDI, right?
Yeah, it was SDI. Yeah.
But the reason we're talking about welding is because he's a welder, and with firearms, you have to remember that certain firearms that are built require welding to build.
Yeah.
Some of them, and in some cases, depending on the type of repair you may have to do to a firearm, you would have to use a TIG welder in a certain circumstance.
Well, my wife, of course, she's been working as an actual gunsmith now for 2 years. And they've got a TIG welder they use constantly. And it can be as something in like, say a break action shotgun, old break action.
Yeah.
Where it wears and you actually have to go in and weld a little material on the surfaces and then file everything down to where it closes properly. Or
like those old double barrel shotguns where the middle rib of the double barrels is literally just brazed on instead of welded on.
Well, a lot of those are brazed, and a lot of times it's best to braze those back on. Just if you heat metal to, I think it's 1333 degrees, what you call the transformation temperature.
Right.
You actually change the structure of the metal. So that's why you see shotguns that are brazed, because brazing is a lower temperature operation. It won't change the structure of the barrels themselves.
Right.
Because if you do that in the wrong cases and then it's not treated right, you could ruin the property of the steel and create a grenade, basically.
That also reminds me to remind people, if you see old antique firearms, have them inspected by a gunsmith if you pick one up. Don't just take one that was made during like the Civil War or before the Civil War that uses a nipple and try and just fill it with normal modern powder and put a nipple on there and fire it, because the problem is, depending on how old, if that barrel and that gun hasn't been properly maintained and taken care of, the barrel may have crystallized.
Well, what it is a lot of those old barrels, the way the barrels were forged, they can't handle the stresses of modern powders.
No.
So
Even though
you'll
there's
blow the
modern
barrel
black
apart.
there's modern black powder to replace the normal gunpowder. Factor is that it's not one for one with the
Yeah,
old stuff.
yeah.
You have to
Can't.
have a different mixture.
Even what you'll see in some cases, even with ones that are typically more of a modern design where you're using a modern cartridge with it, where you've got a
Right.
primer and everything. Yeah, you can't use modern powders in them. They can't handle the stresses.
Mm.
So your modern barrels and stuff, when you fire, they can actually expand and contract and everything, and through the firing process, and they can handle that stress. Your older barrels were harder and more brittle, and they can't handle that fast expansion.
Yeah.
So there have been people that have just blown guns up,
Yeah,
trying to
because
shoot modern loads.
if those barrels have crystallized, they will shatter upon firing it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
they absolutely will just shatter and crack and do all sorts of crazy
and
shit.
believe me, you don't want one of those blowing up in front of you like trying to fire slap rounds through a 50 BMG like Kentucky Ballistics.
Thought shotgun. No, they're not soldered, they're brazed.
Braced.
So
That's what we were talking about. We were talking about the ribs.
and the only real difference in between soldering and brazing is temperature. So soldering happens at under 800, I think it's 840 degrees.
That sounds about right.
Is soldering happens, and then over 840 is where you get into brazing.
Yeah.
And brazing has a better bond, and it's a lot stronger than regular soldering. So
Yeah.
that's why you see a lot of HVAC stuff. It's higher pressure and it's brazed versus a lot of plumbing stuff that's soldered.
Yeah. My grandfather was also a plumber too. He was a plumber, pipe fitter, welder, electrician, and a woodworker.
Yeah,
Because
dude.
he did everything. And the fact is that I've got his old brazing equipment for copper pipes.
Yeah, it's man, a lot of those old school cats, it's like a lot of my uncles and stuff, man. They did everything.
Yeah.
Um, I've got a couple uncles, man. They could literally build a house from the ground up. I mean, pouring the slab, roughing in the plumbing, whole
Oh,
9 yards,
well,
electrical. Just
I'm working on that for my new studio. I'm doing that myself. I'm cutting trees down in the backyard so that I could go and dig down 4 feet to fill in gravel and stones so I can I can pour a foundation because I've got a concrete mixer.
nice.
So that's gonna be fun.
Oh, that'll be a project for sure.
Yeah, yeah, but since I have a concrete mixer, I don't have power out there, but I do have a generator, so I'll be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah. Brazing, Damien, you are right. Brazing is used a lot for gunsmithing too.
it is.
It
It's
is.
used a lot.
But
Um,
remember, in areas you would use brazing, you would not use welding. And here's the thing: there's in firearms, there's also something called silver soldering as well.
yeah, which like I said, silver soldering and stuff. Well, I'll say this. There are some people that talk about silver soldering, but what they're actually talking about is brazing
Mhm.
with a high content silver rod.
Yeah,
They're not talking about like regular soft soldering that you would see on,
I
say, a
know.
plumbing
I just
application.
figured we'd mention it because it's relevant to the conversation.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff you see with even or old shotguns, even new shotguns,
Yeah,
high end guns where the ribs and the beads and all that, a lot of that stuff's all brazed. That's not welded connection. That's not screwed on or bolted connections. That's all brazed.
yeah.
Uh,
All right, so we're getting into some of the gun questions now. So, Coop, I'm gonna throw this at you. What's your favorite firearm platform?
AKs,
AKs.
hands down, AKs.
Right. All right.
That was like I said, that was the first gun that I ever built. It was actually so. Let's see.
Though
When I
trust me, once you get that set me done, you'll be like, "Thank you, man. I love this thing."
that set me, man, has
I
been an awesome gun to work on. And when I get it finished up, yeah, and that'll be my first roller delayed gun.
mm,
Which is that's an
and
interesting
and
operating system all by itself.
and you can use G3 or set me max in that.
Yeah,
So, honestly, I would recommend the G3 ones because they're cheaper and easier to get because they're just all over the place.
yeah, which I've got. I think I've got 4 mags for it. One of them I've kind of beat up fitting the receiver because when you're working on sheet metal receivers, if you're not hitting that damn thing with a hammer at least 100 times, you're not building a sheet metal gun. You're just not.
Yeah, it's sad but true. All right. What are your 3 favorite gun books?
3 favorite gun books.
Yeah.
Oh God, man, I couldn't even tell you. Uh,
Like Gun Digest or the Book of Gun Values or something?
Probably Shooter's Bible, Gun Digest, and then probably the Book of Values, which is
Okay.
basically the blue book for guns.
Yeah,
I've got a couple of those in my library in here.
I do too.
Um,
I think I've got almost every edition of the Shooter's Bible.
I don't have every edition. When my uncle passed, that was some of the
Well,
things that I got from him was his
ev-
Shooter's
ev-
Bibles.
every edition since 2015.
Yeah, and there's man, just hordes of great information. Anything from
Yeah,
reloading and
yeah.
all that in the Shooter's Bible. Load data, freaking just there's tons of great information in them.
Oh yeah.
And I've got another book that I've got to get into a little bit more. It's basically like, oh God, I can't remember what it's called. It's basically gunsmithing on handguns. It's dedicated just for handguns.
Oh yeah.
And I've
I've got
got
one of
to
those
dig
books.
into that.
I've got one of those
Um,
books. It's awesome.
oh, dude, just flipping through it.
Oh yeah.
All the information that I've just kind of grazed over is awesome.
Another
Anything
another another good book.
sites to
Another good books. A couple good books are go. They're expensive, but go and look up the gunsmithing volumes by Brownells.
yes.
They have like everything, all the information you'd want to know on how to fix on a specific gun in those volumes.
Oh yeah. Which I've looked them up for. I might have one or
The
two.
only problem is they're expensive. Really
Yeah, I was
expensive.
fixing to say I might have one in my library in there because when my uncle passed, and my uncle did a lot of gunsmithing on his own. Um, there were a lot of books I got from him, and then there were other books that I had on my own. And I can't remember whether I've got any of those volumes in there, but I think I've got one. Um, and there's so much information just in that little library that I've got in my other part of the office in there that it's insane. If you knew all that stuff, you'd be Mark Novak level gunsmith.
Yeah.
Um, because there's just so much stuff about the refinishing and repair and you know it's it's amazing just the amount of information that I've got in there.
So
Um,
so how did you get into firearms?
dude, I was always into guns because I grew up hunting.
Right.
Um, and it was, but I'll say this. So there's a difference in between someone who's like into guns and then someone who's more into the Second Amendment as a whole.
Right.
So, like when I was growing up, it was FUD guns the whole way. 30-30s, pump action shotguns, stuff like that. It was all hunting
22s.
related. Yeah, it was all hunting related stuff.
Yeah.
But that kind of gave me my love for firearms. Um, and then, hell, losing my rights for God knows how many years. Um, during that time, I was always an advocate for the Second Amendment. It was like, look, even though I couldn't have things at that time, it was people should be able to have these things.
Right.
If they're not a danger to society as a whole, there's no reason to restrict any of these things. When it came to AKs, just for a general aside, I always had a real interest in those guns because, like my dad and uncles being in Vietnam, that was the gun of the adversaries.
Yeah.
And that always interested me about AKs, and
And
I always heard the lore about them, and they were so,
yeah,
indestructible,
and
and
then there and then even before the AKs got really popular here in the United States, before that it was the SKS.
oh yeah,
I don't
um,
you remember those days, right?
dude, I remember seeing SKSs, and I should have bought like crates of them back then.
When they were like $50 a piece.
I think the lowest I ever saw them was $79. And I think that was with so many or 100 rounds of ammunition. Um, and they were still packed in Cosmoline.
Right,
Um,
right.
so, and you're talking, what was the assault weapons ban came in 90,
4.
yeah, 94. So I remember them in stores before 94 where you had the Norinco spikers and all that stuff. And, they interested me then, but I was young enough where all I was interested in was hunting guns. So bolt actions, levers,
Well,
shotguns.
I was interested in whatever who would take me hunting and, take me out into the desert to shoot.
Yeah, it was
I I
just
I wasn't I wasn't picky at that point because I was younger then.
I don't think I was necessarily picky, but it was just that was my scope.
Well, it's because my parents didn't have guns. A lot of my family members, aside from like maybe one or two, they didn't talk about guns. They didn't have any guns because
Yeah,
it was a sore subject.
we always had them for hunting.
They weren't against them per se. It was just it's because my great grandfather was killed by uh, uh, a home invader. So
Oh man.
they caught him
Yeah.
and they caught him and he went to prison. He probably died in prison. But aside the fact that it was a touchy subject.
So I mean they were
But but
never
now
had guns.
but now that they've seen me being a gunsmith and being into guns, they're like, my uncle asked me to build him a rifle, so I built him a rifle.
Yeah, it's
He
like
wanted an AR, I built him an AR. Now his son wants me to build him one too. So, it's like, okay.
dude, I really want to build my dad basically a clone of a M16A1
Yeah,
because that's what he toted in Vietnam.
yeah. Uh,
Um, and I've never been a fan of the carry handles and all that stuff,
I
but
like that stuff. I like the retro look. I know
I
people don't like it. I do.
I've gotten into it in the last little while, especially building some ARs. Um, and I've gotten more into that look probably in the last, I don't know, 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, no,
and it
don't
was
get me wrong. I like the flat top style ARs too, where you can just put like a red dot on it,
yeah.
a magnifier, and then you're good to go. You're off to the races. I agree. I agree. Those are great too. But personally, I like the carry handle look so much so that I went out and bought one of those Brownells red dot replicas that you
Yeah.
put on the carry handle.
Oh, dude, like I said, I want to build one. Um,
Yeah,
I want to do an 80% receiver. I want to actually build the gun
yeah.
and then, give that to my dad. Uh, and I've talked to him about it and he's interested in it, but it's just, man, getting retro parts right now because they're so hot, that price is,
Well, now, well, I would say that prices may start to go down soon because of the change in political climate. We'll leave it at that.
It's possible. It is, and I would
remember,
love to see those
prices were
go down.
really high during Obama's term, and then when who got elected, they went down. They went down.
Dude, I would love to see Trump come in and actually get rid of a lot of the import bans. Just scratch them. These import bans are stupid. And start letting a lot of these guns come back in.
I mean, well, you also have to factor that if we're going to import guns from other countries and we're going to disallow the import bans, we are going to have to add some sort of, I know it's going to suck, but some sort of, tariff on them because, they're not made here in the United States. And that he's going to do that, because that's his thing, tariffs.
That's highly possible.
And then you're gonna have to, split that up and pass it off to the customer because otherwise you can't do business.
Yeah. Hey, give me just a sec. Let me run away for just a second.
All right.
Let me check something real quick. I shall be right back.
And here it's me. We're waiting on Coop to get back. So I'll go through to see who's out there. Who we had out here on the YouTube side. I saw a whole bunch of people. So I saw DM Foss. Rollis Carvelis was out there. Blackbeard Forge was out there. Tactical Muffin Top. That bearded guy. Flying Witch was out here. I think I saw Vanessa Kitty as well. Yep, there it is. Sean Zimmerman's out here. Scott 79. Mike McClune. Anybody I missed? Damien Christian's out there. Who else? I think that's it. If I missed anybody, just give us a shout out on YouTube and we'll give you a shout out too. So but anyways, we just got a few more questions for him and when he gets back and then we'll wrap it up. But we're almost done. So I know what's this? Night Strike is prepared. It's weird being prepared for shows. I don't know if I like it. I honestly don't. So it's just it is how it is. Should I play the Jeopardy song? No, I can't get away with that one. Copyright and whatnot. But just insert game show pause music here. We're waiting on Coop.
Okay, I'm back. I had to check stuff on the stove because I got it sitting in there keeping warm and did not want it burning. I want to get murdered when the wife gets home.
Yeah, you probably are.
Yeah, more than likely. I probably got it coming for something.
But we both know that you deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty well. It's just it's my
M. Gabriel's out there.
Gabriel, what's up, my brother?
So he's out there. Okay, so we got a couple more questions left, and then we're done.
Yeah.
But I have a funny one for you. So yeah. What's your favorite wood?
Dude, you already know, man. I'm just like my wife. We love your wood.
Yeah, I know. I just needed to hear it from you.
I mean, you need that reassurance all the time.
I need that positive reinforcement,
No, the only wood I like more than yours is the wood on my M1. So
yeah, I know.
I seriously have to get better at my refinishing stuff.
Yeah.
I wish I had the pictures now. My wife, one of the stocks she worked on at the gun shop, it was a silver pigeon and had a wild crack going right through the wrist of the gun. And she pinned it, fixed it. You can tell a little bit in the areas where it's checkered, but if you look at the rest of that stock, you can't tell that crack was there.
Did she go and use what is it? What is that called?
Like an Acroglass?
Yeah, did she use Acroglass?
She used another thing that's similar to Acroglass when she
Yeah.
pinned it. Um, yeah, I don't think they're using Acroglass. It's something similar.
Mark
Um,
uses Acroglass all the time.
yeah.
But he also makes it grayish or blackish so that when you're working on darker wood, it fits in.
Oh yeah, dude. If you take Acroglass, because it'll come with a dye, like a black dye you put in it, and you put that dye in there, especially on a darker stock, it will typically look like part of the grain. I've used it to fix a couple things.
I
And
have
of
to.
course, it's good for bedding actions and stuff.
It's good for bedding. It's good for
Um,
stock repair. It's good for
yeah,
for the fore-end repair, wood repair in general for guns.
yeah. Acroglass is some amazing stuff, and Mark's where I found out about it.
I
I
knew
fixed.
I knew that you could use epoxy, but I wasn't like gonna be that guy that would use JB Weld on guns.
Oh
But
God, no! Don't do that.
th-
Oh,
then I decided to do that anyways because I'm not paying like $30 to replace the front sight on a 22 that cost $99.
no, it's
Because the fin on the front sight broke off, so I just went and JB welded it back on.
depending on how the site's fixed. I mean, it could be a situation where you press like a dovetail, where you press the side out, press a new side
Yeah,
in. Um,
all I had to do was really just tap it out and tap it back, tap the new one in. But the issue is, I'm not paying $30 on a gun that costs $100. That's like a quarter
yeah,
of the price of the gun. Plus, it was just the fin, and honestly, the whole piece was intact. It had just popped. It had just broken off, so it was easier to just weld back. Just epoxy back on. And that's what for those that don't know, Acroglass is a type of epoxy for guns.
Damien, my wife wasn't a gunsmith until 2 years ago. She wanted to do something like that, and I got her to do SDI. Um, and we had talked to a couple shops about maybe her doing some apprentice work. And matter of fact, the shop she works at now, we had talked to the dude, and he was like, "Look, I don't hire anybody unless you've got a certification." So I got her to go to SDI and do the classes. And she did her associate's degree with SDI, and then went to work for that shop.
Yeah,
Um, so and then I turned around, I don't know, a couple months after she got her associates, and then started on mine, then got mine.
right.
Um, and I'll say that SDI is like a lot of classes, even in person classes, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you really want to work at it and take everything serious, you'll get quite a bit out of it. If you just want to do the bare minimum just to make the grade, that's what you're going to get out of it. There was a lot of stuff that I knew before I took classes that really helped me, that made a lot of things easier. But like I used one of my AKs for a couple projects.
Right.
I pushed the barrel out, tore it completely down to just the receiver and
Well,
trunnions, reparkerized it for I think one
funny
of the refinishing classes.
funny thing
And
is before I took my gunsmithing course online, I built 2 ARs before I
yeah,
took that course.
I I had built that one AK and then done a bunch of other stuff, just fixing parts and replacing parts, before I took any SDI classes.
Yeah.
So it was of course, me just loving AKs. I used one of my AKs, I think the AK pistol, for a couple parts of classes, and then used another AK for some other parts of classes. But that's where I learned how to parkerize. And I can't remember which class it was in. Um, man, I can't remember which class it was. But that's when I completely tore that AK down, sandblasted everything, cleaned everything, and then reparkerized it.
Mm.
So me being a welder, I built my own park tanks, own burners, all that kind of stuff. Luckily enough, I knew another guy who had a bunch of sheets of, like, I don't know, 16 or 20 gauge stainless. And
Mhm.
I was able to pick up a couple sheets from him, and I built my own park tanks for it.
Yeah.
It was,
That
it's a
that
setup. It
that
works for parkerizing or bluing. So,
that's another thing that, I took away from Mark was, the ingenious method to make a cheap bluing tank just out of PVC pipe.
oh yeah, for rust bluing,
Rust
yeah,
bluing, yeah.
dude, he does so much stuff. Like his bluing solution that he keeps just in like a regular fryer that you would sit on your
Oh yeah,
counter,
no,
like
I
I've
know.
got in there.
I know. I've
Um,
been in the shop. I've seen all his equipment.
I know, and I want to go to it so bad. It ain't even funny.
Dude, I
But
love being in there. I love being in there because so when I'm in there, Mark remembers he has something cool and he brings it out and hands it to me. He's like, "Check this out." Because
and it,
there's one time I was in there, he had a Tommy gun in there, and he
mm,
brought it out and he held it. He handed it to me. Check this out. And I go, so this is how heavy these things are. Shit, if these are what they were bringing into World War II with them, good lord, I wouldn't want to lug that around. He's like, I know, right?
I've had my hands on one Tommy gun in
Well, this
Barrel Automotive in
this was a
Butler,
28 style.
Georgia.
This was a 28 style. It wasn't a an M1 style.
Yeah, and
So
they are just they're bricks.
they are ridiculously heavy. I wouldn't want to lug one around.
But
I
if anybody in the chat doesn't know Mark Novak, so you look up what's his channel, Anvil.
look up Mark Novak on YouTube or
Yeah,
Anvil. I think it's
um,
Anvil or Anvil Gunsmithing. You'll find him.
it's just like Anvil 74. It's something. But if you look up Mark Novak, you'll find Mark.
Yeah,
And Mark is like the OG wizard gunsmith.
he is.
That one of the guns that my dad had that he ended up, it was a 3040 Craig, and I
Yeah.
always loved that gun when I was a kid. And I mean, I was young. I
Good
was
luck trying to
early
find ammo
teens,
for it right now.
but he had that 3040 Craig, and when we went to Fort Gordon, you couldn't use rifles on Fort Gordon to hunt. So he actually traded that 3040 Craig and something else and got a PSE bow and something else for it. And I always loved that 3040 Craig. But Mark had a video where he took a 3040 Craig that was, I think, in a house fire or something. Looked trashed. And he redid that gun and it looked beautiful when he was done with it. It was insane how good that gun looked.
Mm.
And who Ron Wayne, I think I've been back and forth with him because he's got a 3040.
Eh.
And it's like there's that I still want that gun.
Don't get me started with Ron. Every time he has a problem with this Chinese guns, he contacts me.
Well, that's because you're China Strike.
Just because I buy Chinese guns doesn't mean I'm the expert.
You have a
I
rep for
I am not
Chinese guns.
I am not the forgotten firearms for Chinese guns.
You are actually, yeah, you are.
I'm not the forgotten weapons Chinese guns guy.
You are Ian McCullum of Chinese guns.
No. Oh God. I literally am gonna have. I am working on it. I may just start a Chinese gun channel showing off Chinese guns because I've
You
got a
might
bunch,
as well, which
I'll
you
call
know,
myself China Strike.
I can admit there are a lot of Chinese guns that I would love to have.
There are some I want to have, like the C96 Red 9 copies that they made.
Hmm.
It's just the problem is those are like those go between like $1,500 to $2,000.
Oh man,
I'm not paying that much for a Chinese gun.
look at the old Norenko. I mean, you used to be able to pick them up for like $100, and now they're like $1,000 gun for the old Norenko AKs.
M. Gabriel, I don't know if they are going to make obscure ammo because speaking of Mike Cragg, You haven't seen it on my channel, and you haven't heard me talk about it because it's still at Mark's. Because it's
Dude.
waiting for a barrel swap and a what do you call it, a stock restoration.
Ooh, we can show off ammo, right? Yeah, yeah, we can show off ammo. Should
think
be
I can get away with a Garand clip?
Yeah, we should be able to get, but I'll show you one. Talk about obscure ammo. Let me grab it real quick.
All right. Garand clip. Norinco Strike. Oh my God. No, it's just China Strike, not Norinco Strike. I don't think I actually own any Norincos. Actually, funny. No, wait, yeah, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I've got the NHM 91. Yeah.
So talking about obscure ammo. This is a 8x56R. And
8x56. What is that again?
It's an old not Mauser. It's a
yeah, Mauser's 8x57.
Oh God, Steyr.
Yeah.
But these were that is the one I opened. So my wife, it's a straight pull bolt action. That's the clip that actually goes in the gun.
Yeah.
But these rounds, these rounds actually have the eagle and swastika stamped on the head stamp.
Ooh, don't tell people that.
So that's when these are original rounds. When my wife bought that Steyr, it came through the gun shop that she works at, and it's like I said, it's a straight pull bolt action.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Austrian made. I can't remember what year it was, but the Nazis were in power.
That wasn't a fun time for anyone.
Yeah, and you probably won't be able to see it on this camera.
But is it on the head stamp?
Yeah, it's on the head stamp.
Yeah.
And it's actually got the
eagle
and swastika.
That's the one thing. If I get a P38, it's gonna be a P1 style because it's gonna be a post-war West German one. Because I do not want anything with a swastika on it. I don't want it.
I didn't realize these were actual Austrian made from that time. I was actually
that means they're corrosive, by the way.
Oh yeah. I was actually in a gun
they're
shop
Burdam prime
in LJ, Georgia. I was up at a place for some more classes.
Rimmed for your pleasure, yes.
Yeah, I was in a LJ, Georgia. I was doing some more stuff for my certified welding inspector.
Oh, I have to say it properly. China Strike.
Yeah, but I stopped by a gun store. I think it was Appalachian Guns up there. And
I've heard of it.
My wife had bought the Steyr, and I had never heard of an 8x whatever R. You know,
I've heard of it, but I don't remember I forgot that it was the Steyr.
They actually had an MG42 in there for sale.
Ooh.
And I was walking by their ammo selection and saw these, and I texted my wife. I was like, "You need an 8x whatever R, right?" She was like, "Yeah." It was 2 boxes. I think they were like $40-something a box, or some shit like that. But I didn't realize that they were head stamped like that till I got home, and I opened up a box of them. I showed my wife, pulled around at, looked, and went, "Oh shit!"
And Gabriel says, "When you hear that ping, cover me. I'm gonna run for the bathroom." So,
oh, no kidding.
You gotta do it properly.
You remember the story? You remember the stories about guys back then keeping an
I think those are stories. I think those are stories because you know, rest in peace. What's his name? The guy up in, what was it? I'm trying to remember him. It's the one that just died recently.
Paul Harrell.
Paul Harrell, yes. Paul Harrell did a whole thing. Did a whole thing on that. It's like, it's not possible.
No, that's
It's not possible.
everything I've heard from, and I've watched old interviews from guys that actually went through that, who were actually at what lake was it in Korea, or the reservoir, the Chosin Reservoir, who were actually there, and they said no, that whole thing's absolute horseshit. They said no one was keeping an extra clip on them, trying to throw it on the ground, making the ping. Um, Now I
Yeah.
do have. It's this one. Yeah, I do have some fully loaded,
Yeah.
M1 Garand, however you want to say it, lips.
I don't have any fully loaded, but I do have surplus brass lying around.
I do my
There's my surplus 30-06.
My father-in-law actually had a bunch of M1 Garand clips that were from a 308 gun.
Yeah.
And
well, they converted some of them for 308 tankers.
One of the dudes that he knew, and it was years ago, just gave him a freaking, I don't know how many of them I've got down there, because he ended up giving me all of them. And my father-in-law just wanted the 308 ammo. He was like, sure, I'll take all of them for the ammunition itself. And when I got that M1, when my uncle died, my father-in-law was like, hey, I've got all these clips. He said, now they're loaded with 308 right now, but he said, you strip the 308 out of them, you can have the clips. It's like, shit, I'll take them. Yeah. And I've got, shit, I don't know, 20 something of them from him.
Yeah.
And I've got, shit, I don't know, most of them loaded.
Yeah, DM Foss is right. You're not going to hear a ping during a firefight, because
hell no.
During a firefight, your ears are going to be, because back then they didn't have ear protection, so your ears are going to be ringing from hearing the gunshots.
Well, some of the ears going to be ringing, but have you ever heard about auditory occlusion?
Yeah.
So that's like every deer that I've ever shot, I have never had my ears ring from the shot. Never. It's never affected my hearing at all. And I've heard a lot of vets talk about it where, they didn't have any issues with their hearing, because your stress level rises to a point where your ears automatically kind of adjust to the sound level. Now, it's not all the time, because obviously they deal with a shitload of hearing damage. But yeah, for some of it, yeah, you won't hear it. There's no way you're going to hear that ping, because if your ears aren't ringing because you're hearing the shooting, your ears adjust, and that auditory occlusion's there, and you're not going to hear a sound like that, especially at a distance. There's no way. So as many times as I've heard that story from guys,
I don't believe it at all.
I don't know. Yeah. Especially after listening to, like I said, interviews with guys that were at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea, and hearing some interviews for some guys from World War II. No, you ain't hearing that.
No,
ain't no way.
All right, so we got a few more questions, and we're done.
Yep.
So the first one is, are there any firearms that you've acquired recently that were on your bucket list?
No, nothing that was really on my bucket list. And I've done, especially for the last couple of years, I've done more building than I have buying.
Share one of the guns that is on your bucket list.
Browning BAR. That
you and everybody else.
That is one of the guns that is absolutely my bucket list gun.
The model of 1918.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not talking about a Browning BAR hunting rifle. I'm talking about
and that's just like that. When I saw that, it's like they just ripped off the name but they changed the whole design of the rifle.
Yeah. Well, it's still a Browning automatic rifle,
It
and
doesn't
it's
look like one.
but it's not the 1918
1918 model.
yeah, Browning automatic rifle that was used in World War II.
I mean, if you're gonna make
Um,
it semi-auto, great, but don't change the design, guys.
yeah, and
That's what I didn't like.
that's probably number one bucket list gun. And it's just I don't know. I just got hard on for it because it's one of those iconic guns. The next one underneath that would have to be an MP5. Um, which believe it or not, after building this set me,
You'll
if
be
I
able
can
to build the
if
MP5
I
because
can if
you
I
can use
can
the
find
same
an
jig.
if I can find an MP5 kit, I'm building an MP5.
I can find your kit. The problem is you're not gonna you can't
Oh,
find them. You can't find them for under $900.
yeah, I know. That's the prices are
Yeah, and at that point, if you're gonna spend that much, you might as well spend the extra $100 and get like one of those Century AP5s.
I'd still rather build it myself. I'm in that place where I would still just rather build it.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, and I think that's about it. Uh, you know, for those that are wondering, you can find Coop on his YouTube channel. I've got it in the description of the video, so just check out the links below. Uh, you can also check him out on Rumble.
yep.
So with that, I think that's it. You know, anything else, Coop? You got any
No.
final words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. Mm, I would say hang in there because I expect things to get crazier than they are right now.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too.
I really expect things to get even dumber. Um, and who
Sadly,
knows? I might crank up something after this just to hang out. But yeah, it's
after I take a
sadly
break, I might go come over there.
yeah. I mean, it's sadly enough, man. I think things are going to get even dumber.
Well,
Um,
I'm trying to stay, cautiously optimistic myself.
yeah, I guess you could call me a pessimist on some things like that because
I say cautiously optimistic because I'm not a pessimist where I think everything's gonna be negative all the time. I'm like, I'm more of a realist because everything can go wrong, will go wrong.
yeah, that's kind of where I sit on a lot of things.
Murphy's Law.
It's kind of where I sit on. I talk a lot, and I've talked a lot on my channel about all the judges that Biden and the Democrats have confirmed. 200, I think last count 229 on the
Yeah.
federal courts, and those will affect us. Anytime you get a gun case, guess what? It's going to run up probably against one of these absolutely leftist
And
judges.
it's probably gonna get challenged to the Supreme Court because of it.
Yeah, it's going to work its way up.
Because the lower courts will go one way, the higher courts will go another way, then you'll have a circuit split. And then at that point, it goes because you have a circuit split because of the lefty judges, it'll go to the Supreme Court when there's a
That's
circuit split.
that's one of the things about Trump winning this election. So if Harris had won, she would have more than likely got at least two picks for the Supreme Court. Um,
Mm.
and that would have flipped it. Well, it would have done two things. They would have either got two picks for the Supreme Court or they would have packed the Supreme Court, which would have completely flipped the leaning of the court. Um, and that would have been horrible for us because every gun case that the Supreme Court's dragging their feet on now, they would have taken up, and they would have been just like Hawaii with the Aloha spirit, and we would have been.
I do
well
have to address something.
Hmm.
Leo, Coop lives in the South. They don't use that kind of stuff down there.
Coop's preferred pronouns. I won't say those on Night Strike's channel. I'll say those on my own channel.
You see, they don't have those down here. They don't have them.
Yeah, I posted those on Twitter or on X the other day.
Yeah,
I won't say
Not-
those on
not-
Night Strike's
not
channel.
safe for work or Night Strike's channel.
No. I'll sync my own channel. I'm going to try not to do it to anybody else's.
Yeah, I've already sank this one enough as it is. I'm trying to bring it back. I'm trying to bring it back above water.
Yeah, I'm too busy drilling holes in my own boat. Just
You are. If it wasn't worse enough, you were sinking, but now you're drilling extra holes in, so you're getting further down to the bottom.
Dude, I am absolutely amazed my YouTube channel has lasted as long as it has.
I am too, considering where you
I
started.
am absolutely amazed.
Yeah.
Because
right.
we don't shy away from anything. So
No. With that, guys, we will see you later. We've run this one into the ground. So thank you all that have chatted out there on the live chat. Asked questions. They were great. What else? Thanks for showing up. Coop, thanks for being here and doing this with me. And
hey, brother, I appreciate it.
I got to find someone to be next. I'll probably have to go with I'll probably have to ask Rich or somebody else.
Well, Rich would be another good show.
Rich would probably be a better one, actually.
That last show with Banshee, dude, I love him so much.
Well, the problem is when me and Jason get together, it's just like it's just like we're off to the races because I've known him forever and he's a great friend.
Oh, dude. His video, and I think it's still up for Winchester 94. I refinished one for a family member. Had to completely strip it down, re-blew it, replace some parts. I never would have made it through that refinished job without Jason's video.
Yeah.
And I think I posted that on his video. It is amazing. He's just a hell of a dude.
So on that note, everyone, we will see you later. I've got to say it. Shut up, infringed.
Never.
All right, we're out.
Later, guys.
How do I turn this damn thing off?
Hit the button.